quick, please.
My name is Lisa Von Gelder, and I'm with the John Birch Society. We have a documentary on the carbon capture pipelines that are in Iowa, South Dakota, and the danger of these things. And if you're not aware, they're very dangerous. I have a video here of a pipeline burst, and they come.
Well, I can
they
believe
burst,
that if they're
and it
I
is
can
in the
believe
valley, and she was right. The vehicles can't drive. Emergency vehicles couldn't get through.
So you're talking about carbon capture.
Yes.
And this is a means of taking away the captured
Right,
carbon.
and they're
Okay,
shoving
so,
it up into the shale
yeah,
fields.
carbon capture is a really idiotic idea because
Thank you.
so anybody doing carbon capture is not an anti-science because there's no reason to capture carbon. And so I guess what you're saying is that in order to ship this carbon around, they compress it, make it very cold, and put it in pipelines, which of course makes it dangerous, not because it's carbon dioxide, but because it's compressed and cold now. And if you release it, you're right, it will fall down. And if someone's nearby when a whole bunch of cold, heavy carbon dioxide comes out, they could be hurt by that. But the first answer is that there's no reason to do carbon capture. It's the gas of life. It should go up. It should go wherever it wants to go. You know?
Okay. Jonathan, for people that want to know more after this event, where is there a best website to follow up or even communicate with you?
You can email me or you can get to me on X. It's at Kohler, Kohler, okay, on X, and my email address is kohler@jonathankohler.com. Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Jonathan Kohler, everybody. Give me a microphone check. There we go. Thank you so much. There is a lot going on this planet. And as I said, so many people have wide varieties and very narrow focal points as far as the research. And so it's not unusual for someone with an expertise here to not know. I mean, when people approach me about things, it's like, well, I never heard of that. That's interesting. Let's look into it. But that's part of what we do here, is that we can share information that not all of us have, and then we can dig deeper on it. So this is a good opportunity to do that. We got another lecture coming up here. And Jonathan, if we can get your microphones to the next talk. We're coming up in just a moment here. So how are you guys holding up? Day one's almost done. Everybody good? Yeah? Too much? Not enough? All right. We also have, for those that signed up for it, a VIP dinner afterwards, and give you a little bit of heads up as they're switching the microphones here for tomorrow, just to let you know why it only gets better from here. We're going into Sunday morning with John Schaefer, how 5 years as a J6 prisoner changed his worldview. And one of my favorites, Dr. Lee Merritt. Anybody met Dr. Lee Merritt? Dude, does she go deep? And she goes into some great history. I love her. She's going to go into exposing some of the, have you ever heard when this is, when I made that post, it was just an innocent post sharing my story about my kids and raising them without vaccines and antibiotics. And suddenly the trolls came out and said, but what about smallpox? I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know that what the medical doctors did in response to smallpox resulted in more death than the smallpox itself? And that the homeopaths and the naturopaths and the herbalists and the eclectic, all of that knew what to do to respond. And it wasn't to put mercury chloride on the skin and poison the body further, resulting in automatic death. So the mortality rate of people that went to see doctors, allopathic doctors during smallpox, and we can go to typhoid and typhus, was 50% or higher. Whereas those that went to see homeopaths, and these are in the references in the early 20th century, it was like a 1, 2, or 3% kind of a mortality rate, was almost non-existent. So the response, even in acute scenarios that we've been told to believe, things like polio, they said it's one thing, yet they neglect to recognize that where it was occurring was where they were spraying DDT prolifically. And there were other factors associated with that in the 1940s, 50s, and other things that occurred. But again, it's context, it's terrain, and everything. All right, so it looks like we got her wired up. So let's go to our next talk, which is going to be really cool. And let me see if I can find the right. I went to Sunday already. Welcome, Lynette. Hello. Lynette Zang is up with us here. And we're going to be talking about some economic stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Oh, yeah.
We are.
So I'll let her introduce herself since she's ready to rock and roll here. Everybody, welcome Lynette Zang to the Red Pill Expo stage.
Thank you. Thank you. Give me 2 seconds to get my props ready, because you guys know I like my props. They make a point. Okay. One more little thing, and I will be ready to rock and roll. Okay, this is the one I want. All right. So, thank you all for being here. It's really an honor to be here with people that are brave enough to ask the questions that most other people just accept. Okay, so I can't see, can I only see it there? Just kind of need to know what I need to look at in here, but is it that all I see here is the Red Pill Expo thing. So there we go. Okay, good. Thank you so much. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lynette Zang, and I am the founder and CEO of Zang International. I've studied currencies and currency life cycles since 1987 as a stockbroker at Shearson. And I was there on Black Monday in '87. So I learned really early that markets can look stable until they do not. But I'm not really here today to talk about any particular investment or a market. I'm here to talk about what's underneath all of it, the money they're valued in. And oh, by the way, your access to it. We're going to begin with the ship of Theseus. This is a 2,000-year-old thought experiment, and it asks, if you replace a ship one plank at a time, is it still the same ship? If gold and silver define the sails, and you look at the ship, but now the ship is defined by a debt-based dollar, are we still on the same monetary ship? And how do they make that change with people not really knowing? Well, this is a pattern that changes the planks. Create, debase, replace. That's just 3 little words. Yet once you understand them, monetary history looks very, very different. And today we're going to be talking about the transitions between systems, from ownership to permission to control. What if your bank account is turned off? You need permission to access the wealth that you've managed to accumulate in there. Now, most people think that they're paid in money, but they're not. You're paid in debt. And, you know, we're laughing, but we all accept it. And we're forced to deal with the inflation, which, by the way, is not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon. So I'm going to show you what money's really supposed to do. It's supposed to be a unit of account so you can value and price things, a medium of exchange for trading and barter, a standard of payment so that you're fairly paid for your labor and you can settle debts, and arguably the most important function, and the one they'd rather you never think about, as a long-term store of value, because money is really a tool to store any labor that you generate today for use in the future at the same level of purchasing power, whether that's tomorrow or 10 years or 1,000 years. Only gold fulfills all of those functions, critical functions. It is universal, meaning it's used all over the world. It is decentralized, it is private, and is sound money outside of the banking system. This is critically important, especially with the direction that they're taking us in today. Every single portfolio needs a sound money foundation, as well as surety in food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation. Communities become arguably the single most important thing that I ever really talk about, and shelter. Because these are all the things we need to be self-sufficient and independent. And quite honestly, there's a lot to do there, and you need community because everybody brings something different to the table. But you need a foundation in sound money. Now, gold and silver protect labor. This isn't rocket science, it's just logic, because they limit the number of claims against the money. So therefore, governments cannot inflate away the value of your work, because that's really what money is supposed to represent. Never told that either, are we? But I want you to keep in mind those three words: create, debase, replace, because I'm going to show you how they do all of this. This is the kickoff to this fiat money experiment. It started prior to 1914. This is where I have this. I imagine this is going to be quite challenging to see. This is a $1 gold coin, roughly a 20th of an ounce of gold. See how tiny it is? But it's important and it matters because it forces discipline and it restricts governments and central banks from creating too many claims against this. That's why gold and silver work. It limits the claims and it puts the power in the people's hands. Now, this is something that I came across, and whenever I see anything unusual, I'll grab it and I'll put it over there until I have time to watch it. This is probably one of the greatest finds that I ever made, actually. But that same little 20th of an ounce, that was a $1 gold coin. After the Federal Reserve was legalized, well, these are the gold reserves that we had, but after the Federal Reserve was legalized, that 20th of an ounce, this little teeny piece of gold, now back $2.40. This is an overview. I'm going to take you deep into the belly of the beast with this one. This is an overview. So what you're looking at is the gold reserves that we had. And oh, what is that thing that just came up there? How about corporate debt that was created? I'm going to show you that in more detail. Once the public lost the ability to convert dollars into gold, all of those corporate debt claims exploded. It's the way they always do it. I'm going to show it to you in more detail in a second. But all of that was monetized as what? Federal Reserve notes. Huge. Can you see that inflation? Now, they didn't release all of that at once because it would have been far too noticeable, but they did create it, and make no mistake, that's private corporate debt. And then in 1960, and again, we're going to go into this in more detail, but in 1960, the claims against our gold grew so large, we had to go off the gold standard. There was really no choice. So let me show you how it all started, because it's really quite fascinating. There are gold reserves, nice and solid, and then bam, corporate claims. All of a sudden, do you see that straight up? This is how they started to convert sound money, gold, into corporate debt. And we didn't even realize it, though we lost quite a bit of purchasing power. But all of that new money that they put into the system, that's what created the Roaring 20s. Happy days are here again. They were feeling all of that money printing, and they didn't even know why. But this is why, because all of a sudden, all these corporate claims became money. What is that? I'm going to show it to you in more detail, but that was the kickoff. I'm venturing to say, did you ever see that chart before? I know, what a find. By the way, I don't want you to take my word for anything. Just give us a call. We'll give you the links to all of the research that went into this piece today. Do your own due diligence. Form your own opinions. But this is the kickoff. Roughly 2.5 times the amount of money to the level of gold. Remember, that little 20th of an ounce was a $1 gold coin. Now it back $2.40. Well, it was okay as long as not too many people asked for the gold. But let's just keep going because, wow, look at that. Governments and central bankers need you to think that nothing is changing, that it's just a continuation as always, but they know how to do this. First, they start with sound money. That's gold. That's a $20 1 ounce gold coin, roughly 1 ounce. Then they bring out the gold certificate. See that nice little gold bar there or circle? Okay, they must be the same thing after all. I could walk into any bank with this, and walk out with this. So they must be the same. But at the same time, they came out with the Federal Reserve note. Now, can you see how closely these two look? So people thought for 20 years, all three of them operated inside of the economy at the same stated face value. Every single one of those were 20 bucks. So people got used to them and they got used to thinking, well, they're all the same. There's no difference between the two. The public thought all three were money, but only gold is sound money. The others are claims or debt. But you think nothing has changed when in reality, everything important has changed. And I'm going to show you that. Because what is this? A Federal Reserve note. It's in your wallet. You're walking around with it. You've agreed to work for it. Try and save it. You wonder why it's losing value? Because it is actually a debt instrument. It's not money, it's debt. You have to really think about that because you have to ask yourself, is that okay? But of course, once everybody got used to using these claims and the debt instruments, it was pretty easy to take the gold away from the people. And this is critical because gold enabled the public to have real sound money outside of the banking system. And that's what gave the public their power because it was outside the system. We've heard those words before too. So then public had to lose power because after all, we have to take the gold away from the public. And you saw that overall chart. Once they did that, that debt just exploded because you had no way to protect yourself after that. And you didn't realize it. But what happened after the public lost convertibility? Well, this is the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. That small shopping cart represents the most purchasing power that the dollar will ever have. I mean, it had the most in 1913. This is 1933. That large cart is just so you can see this loss better. So those are exactly the same. So after the public could no longer protect themselves from inflation, there was a 69% overnight devaluation. Can you see the loss of purchasing power in that cart? Only 31% remained out of the dollar of 1933 in terms of value. That's your labor. If I can get you to understand one thing, it's that money is supposed to be a store of value for your labor. So when they create inflation, they're robbing you of your time and your freedom and really everything that you hold dear. So, oh, that went a little quick. Let me see if I can get that back. All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this part. This is after 1933, and you saw those debt claims explode. This is the gold. And can you see in 1960, foreign governments got to do what the public could no longer do because we had the most gold in 1948 when the US dollar became the world reserve currency. It's that gold that gave it its credibility and the world the confidence. But as we kept printing more money, creating more debt, exporting inflation, the world saw what was really happening. And so they were sending in dollars in exchange for gold. And you can see 1960, negative gold in excess of foreign demand claims. So, you know, part of what you have to wonder is, if those claims are in excess of what we can do, a lot more than what we can do, well, what do? Either the government has to go back and redo the promise, or they change the rules. They did that in 33, they changed the rules. And they did it again in 1971. But if you wonder why President Nixon took us off the gold standard, there you go. Too many claims, not enough gold. Now, 1965, silver was removed from new dimes and new quarters. The last vestige of what the public could use in terms of money to protect their purchasing power. But again, just like they did in 1914, they allowed the base metal coins and the silver coins to go along side by side. They all worked in the vending machines the same way. At the cash register, they got the same face value. So people didn't realize that anything was different. They thought they were the same, but they were not the same. After that, I will tell you, at the booth over there, we have dime cards. This is such a good example of substitution. And when you see it, you can tell, because the dimes that were minted prior to 1965 were silver, real silver. The ones that were minted afterwards, base metal. There's a little copper color in there, but you don't even get the value of the copper. So go to our booth, ask for a dime card, have that conversation, look for yourself, look on the edge. You'll see the difference between the two, and then share it. Because what we're really trying to do is create a global movement to demand sound money back in the system again. Might not matter to some of us. I mean, I'm kind of old. It doesn't really matter as much to me, but I have children and I have grandchildren and someday maybe even great-grandchildren. And we have to get sound money back in the system again for them. And this is the opportunity. Because after they got rid of the silver for the public and the gold for the public, and you saw all of those claims against the gold that we had, we were already negative. Well, then they had to remove gold from the world. These are major planks being removed and changed in these ships, but they have to happen slowly, because otherwise you notice and you might not agree. That's that % inflation target. Yeah, that's slow enough that you don't realize what's happening, but they're robbing you every second. And what did President Nixon? Some of you might remember that. I certainly remember that. I was a teenager when this happened. And if you are among the overwhelming majority of Americans who buy American-made products in America, your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today, but not the next week or the next year or the next 10 years, right? They have to maintain your confidence, especially now that we were on a pure debt-based system. This is critical. Why do you think they check that all the time? They're looking at consumer confidence, inflation expectations, because it's a con game. But people are starting to wake up more and more because, oh, now affordability. Well, if we were back on a gold standard and we had silver in our money, the public would have power again. That's where I want to go. But I want you to see the transition to the fiat money, because it's still a unit of account and a medium of exchange and arguably even a standard of payment, at least for a minute. But the most important function, the one that really protects your labor, that store of value, nope, no more. So instead of the 4 functions of money, we're down to 3 functions of money. Anybody that knows, are you saving dollars? Of course not. This is a very intelligent group, especially in this area. But I want you to really think about something that's very profound, because this is a reversal and we have to make another reversal on this. For thousands of years, sound money, physical gold, anchored debt and created limitations and protected the value of your labor over time. But after that, now unlimited amounts of debt anchor fiat money. Inflation is not a monetary phenomenon. It is a fiat money phenomenon. It is by design. Governments, you know, they wanted to tax you without you protesting. Well, inflation does that, right? That's that inflation tax. And corporations want to pay you less. Well, if you're used to getting $5, you're not going to accept less. But if that $5 spends like less, there's your K-shaped economy. Not in your benefit. We have to take our power back because these changes happen plank by plank by plank, and you don't see them happening. I don't know how many people are aware that even after 1971, like they did in 1933, after they took away your ability to protect yourself, there are more devaluations in the US. People say, oh, they won't confiscate again. Oh, they won't do an overnight devaluation. Well, that goes against history. This is not me. That happened to come out of the New York Times. So in 1971, convertibility for governments was suspended. And then a little while later, an overnight 10% devaluation of the dollar and a reset in the gold price. And then again, 2/12/73, second 10% overnight devaluation and a reset of the gold price. I don't know. I was alive then. I was born in 1954. I actually didn't remember those devaluations. 10%, that's 20% aside from all the inflation. I don't know. It happened before. Do you think it might happen again? We're going to find out, aren't we? So what was the result of it? Okay, you guys, what was the result of it? Well, now there's no limitation on how much they can create. Wait a minute. Okay. Right? I wish it was that easy that they could run out of it and stop. But the more they do, the less value everything out there has. And what's the result of all of this? Well, debasement. Here, you're slavery, absolutely right. Treason, well, I think we need to have a little treason in here because I disagree with them and it's not okay with me. I mean, aren't you tired of working for debt, right? So here is the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. This is from the Federal Reserve Education Department. One of my very favorite websites, if you're not familiar with it, it's the FRED, F-R-E-D. Do yourself a favor. Go on there in the search bar. This happens to be the purchasing power of the consumer dollar. And so I think that's great to look at. And it's something I pay attention because stocks can go up, right? Inflation makes all of those assets inflate, you know, stocks, real estate, even incomes. People feel wealthy for a while until they realize, go on a little bit longer and the currency is debased. By 1971, we only had 24 cents out of the original dollar's worth of purchasing power. Where are we now? Anybody have an idea? This is going. What is this doing? Oops, nope, I'm not ready for that one yet. Sorry about that. No, officially, we've broken 3 cents. This is official. So, you know, governments and central banks, they can jury-rig the formulas, which means it's worse than that, right? 0.029 cents. What can you buy when you go to the grocery store? Not a whole lot, right? Okay, so now I'm going to give you a big overview from the beginning to the end, and then we're going to talk about where we're headed. create, yes, monetary systems start with gold so that you are confident. That's the anchor. But then they need more flexible money. And so the Federal Reserve was created or legalized in 1913, and we've seen the result of that. That big dip that you see out of the chute, that's that $2.4 for every dollar, 20th of an ounce of gold that they held. So yeah, happy days were here again. When you get a little bit of recovery, you feel like, okay, things are getting back to normal. They never get all the way back to normal. Debase, and here we are. 2008, I'm telling you, I knew it then, I've been saying it since then, and I'll say it today. The system died in 2008. So now they have to go for a replacement. I personally have been watching Bitcoin since it was $7 a coin. I don't own any of it because I knew as soon as I saw it that it was the Trojan horse to get normalcy in the system and get people comfortable using digital currencies. So where are we going? Well, I don't know. We've seen this pattern with all the debt going up. Haven't we seen that? Does this look familiar? It's not a coincidence. This is how they do it. They make you comfortable with it, so you think nothing has changed. But you always have to ask, not just what do we gain by this? I mean, it's so much better. It's more modern. It's outside the system. Does anybody here, I don't think this crowd would believe that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are still outside the system. Do you? Anybody here, maybe a show of hands that thinks it's still outside the system? Yeah, I didn't think so. But there are people that will still have that argument with me, or at least attempt to have that argument. It's the normalcy bias, right? And they change the reals, change the promises, they change the rules. Stable coins, all right, they're setting it up. And who can issue stable coins? Anybody, pretty much. Corporations. So I showed you in the beginning how they took corporate debt and converted it and got us to think that it was actually money when it's corporate debt. Well, they're doing the same thing with stable coins to strengthen the dollar, or rather to create an artificial market for dollars and treasuries and all of that debt. But they're transitioning us into a new system. And we have to fight that. Look, I'm not saying that these things are going away. They're not. They're here, and there might be some good things about it. But what we can also do is demand redeemable gold back in the system again. Because if you can't take it out, how do you know that it's actually there? We have to become our own central bankers at this point, or you're going to have no choice. If everything you have is intangible and they say jump, you're going to have to say how high. I met a trucker from Canada who was there when Trudeau cut everybody off. It was an interesting conversation, absolutely. So you need real sound money outside of the system, and we need to come together in community and demand it. One person can't do anything, but there's 8.4 billion people in this world, and I believe that 3% of them can make a difference. So what does that look like? Because you have to ask, not just what am I gaining, but what am I losing? Well, we know about the store of value function. That was gone when we transitioned to a pure debt system. But now there are two other functions that are critically important that are really at risk. One is the standard of payment for fair labor. If you read what the central banks talk about in a digital currency, they're going to guarantee you no inflation. Nope, no inflation. You just give us that digital currency. Why? Because negative rates are a choice. Yeah, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to save up money that I'm losing value on, and I'm going to loan it to you and say, sure, give me back less than I loaned you. Well, I might do that for one of my children, but I'm not going to do it for a government or a corporation. And yet that is what's going to happen. Because once all those rails are in and your money is immediately deposited into your bank account, your access is no longer absolute. You have loaned the bank that money, and with negative rates, you're not even going to be fairly paid for your labor. If that's the only option we have. Well, what else? Well, a medium of exchange. Except that these individual corporations like Amazon or the banks like JP Morgan or Visa and MasterCard and whoever else is going to issue these stable coins, and always be careful of the language and what things are named, they're going to have it inside of their little ecosystem. And so it is quite possible, quite probable that you're going to lose a lot of choices in your medium of exchange. And what does that mean? That means that if we don't do something about this and this all goes through, we're likely to have one function yet left, and that's just a way to price stuff. We really have to look in the mirror. We really have to see. I mean, we are at the 8th hour. We really have to see, if not me, who, and if not now, when. But we can look at examples, and we have to be cautious because we're hearing so much about these asset-backed securities. Well, here's Zimbabwe. I've been following them for a really long time. And in fact, where is it? Well, I had it, but I don't have it anymore. I have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. This happens to be a $500 million bolivar, right? People get blinded by numbers, but numbers, 10 trillion times zero is still zero. But look at this, it's new, it's awesome, it's so much more secure, it's more modern, it goes around the system, it's fabulous. And yet, with Zim Gold in there, which is all digital, you cannot take possession of it, they're sitting at the highest CPI inflation, and they did an overnight reset. If it was redeemable, if the gold was redeemable, the likelihood of them being able to get away with that would be pretty nil because people would rush to pull the gold out of the system. So don't be fooled if somebody says something is backed because it probably is simply pegged to a market that's easy for them to manipulate because that's their job. Their job is to lie, and let's lie a little bit more. So this is the way I think about things. A lot of people, actually, I even had somebody ask me here earlier, well, is gold too expensive? Did I miss it? No, a rising gold price is an indication of a failing currency. Governments do not want you to understand that the currency is failing, and so they suppress and suppress and suppress the price. But this is a con game. They need your confidence. So when they've lost the confidence, that's when the gold comes back in, and that's when we get that overnight revaluation. And I can tell you absolutely, gold is sound money. These bills, this stuff, and the digitals, that's fiat money. They're both money, but they're the flip side of it. We know in this system, what generates money is debt. So if you want to know the true fundamental value of gold so that you know if something is undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued, therefore, do I want to buy it? Do I want to hold it? Do I want to liquidate it? Well, you have to understand how much it's really worth. Does anybody here believe Wall Street? I worked in Wall Street. I don't believe them. I know better. I worked in banking. I understand the language, and I'm not there, am I? So the true fundamental value of 1 ounce of gold, were they to do an overnight reset today, is somewhere in the vicinity of $40,000. So at $4,000, is it overpriced? Is it overvalued? No, it is not. So keep accumulating, become your own central banker. Because the way that I look at gold and silver, not as a trade, as a foundation. Physical gold, physical silver in your possession are the only two financial assets that run zero counterparty risk. What's next? Opportunities, stocks, bonds, ETFs, etc., royalties. Now, you could be thinking this is where you get exposure, sub-leverage, etc. Okay. And I know somebody said, well, what about Bitcoin? Maybe I can buy it and then I can convert it. Well, you can until you can't. And I'm telling you, I was there on Black Monday and I went out to lunch in the morning. Everything seemed normal. When I got back to the office, I raised my right hand to God, no crosses count. It was chaos. We had clients all over the place and the stockbrokers were in the back. And when I went in the back, I didn't see anybody. And I'm thinking, where is everybody? Because the phones are ringing, everybody's shouting out in the front. They were literally under their desks. The stockbrokers were, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not kidding either. It was the most incredible day, the best day I could have ever been a stockbroker. Because then I had these oil wildcatters, and they taught me the technicals of the market. But they were really brilliant. But above here, and we've got to really pay attention to this, is that permission layer. When you say, well, you know, can the bank just shut down my account? It's not your account. It's not your money in there. You have loaned the bank that money and they have safe harbor. They don't have to give it back to you. Legally, they do not have to give it back to you. Did anybody go to jail in 2008? I think a protester did. Exactly. Why? What they did was horrendous, disgusting. There are people that are still feeling the impact, but it wasn't illegal. And they're doing the same thing with all these hyperscalers and all of those entities that are doing all these cryptocurrencies. They have safe harbor, which means they can blow up the whole system. They're not going to jail. You and I are going to be paying for it, because whenever there's expansion and all of this debt, there's always a price to be paid. And when you're looking at opportunities, people look up at the top. They think, well, that's my bank account. It's not your bank account. It's an illusion. And people think, well, look, maybe the stock market's going to keep going up. And it can certainly, I think we're in melt-up phase. So yeah, it's going to keep going up. But 1 trillion times zero is zero. Have a foundation so that no matter what happens, you are okay. It's proper diversification. What if I'm right? What if I'm wrong? If you can do something that doesn't matter whether you're right or you're wrong, why in the world wouldn't you do that? And here's a question, and I really want you to think about this. Do you own the money that survives the change? Because gold and silver has survived a lot of changes. There's over 4,800 fiat money currencies that don't exist anymore because there's no value in here. And they're designed to be inflated away and rob you of your work, your labor, your hopes, and your dreams. And people wonder why they have trouble feeding their children. Here in the US, adults can't pull together $400 for an emergency. And they have to take out a 4 easy payment loan in order to feed their children. That's horrendous. So ask yourself that question. Do I own the money that survives the change? And if we can help you, if you have any questions and we can be of service in any way at all, if this conversation has created some questions for you, we would be honored to help you do it. And could my team please stand up just so they can see who you are? We're all over the place. There's Sari and Jen and Brandon and Jacqueline and Dale. So come and get your dime cards, have that conversation. And I know a lot of people like to ask me questions typically, So are there any questions that I could answer for you today? Yes. Can you come up to the mic, please? And there's no question that's off limits, by the way. Oops. I don't know, but let me see. Could we turn on this mic somehow? Hello? Nope. You want this? Can we turn the mic on? Okay. Okay.
Do you know the story of Norman Dodd?
No, would you share it, please?
Yes, he was a banker and he worked for the bank. His boss was the head banker.
It's not working.
Hello. Okay, now you hear me. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank
No,
you.
Norman Dodd was a banker. He worked for the banker. He was like a sub banker, and the collapse had just happened, and the banker told him, "Well, we don't know what to do." He says, "Well, you have to go out and find out." So he took 2.5 years and found out and came back, and the result was he said to the banker, "You have to go back to sound banking money principles." And the banker told him, "We will never, ever go back to sound banking money principles." And here we are.
Well, so what are we going to do about that? Because we can accept it. No, would they want to give up their money monopoly? Of course not. So that's why it's so I travel around the world and I talk about sound money and I hand out the dime cards because we have to come together in global community and demand it. That's the only way. They're not going to go, yeah, we've had a good run. Your turn.
Yeah, those who should be charged with treason, and upon conviction, no federal judge has any authority to rule other than death.
So I forget exactly which year.
Can you talk about, yeah.
I forget exactly which year FDR said you have to trade in your money, trade in your gold.
1933.
Okay, 1933. And then, of course, conveniently, they paid people, 20%? They revalued the gold after everyone.
Yeah, 69% overnight
Okay.
revaluation. Yep.
So my question is, what's to prevent them from doing it again? Because if you have,
That's exactly the point. You are so right. That's why we have to come together and say, no, you can't do that. But what's to prevent them too is making sure you are as self-sufficient and independent as possible. And food is the biggest issue. 2008, I definitely knew the system died. There was not one doubt in my mind. That's when I became an urban farmer and a prepper. Because we need to create sure, I don't know what a prepper or farmer looks like, but I'm one. I can tell you that because I believe my studies, and food is the single biggest issue for people. You can't live without food. You can't live without water. So that's why community is really important, local community, because go to a farmer's market, go to a community garden, get to know the people that grow your food, give them a day's labor. Even though silver is probably my favorite form of barter because it's universal, right? And it has no shelf life. Any tool, any skill that you have, anything physical that you have is also barterable. So we need to come together, share the gifts that we've been given. If you know how to garden, that's awesome. Maybe you have a massage therapist or something like that. I have a bug out location and I'm setting it up to be able to support 40 people because it takes a community, right? I'm not going to go out there. I don't lay irrigation anymore, but I know how to. I'll tell you right now, I don't want to, but if I had to do it, I could absolutely do it. And in this community that we're pulling together, we have doctors, we have teachers, we do have a massage therapist because I think that's really important. We have farmers, we have carpenters, we have a variety of skills. That's why a local community is so very important. And then the global community, if we can get 3% of the 8.4 billion people that are on this planet, just 3%, that's not that many, then I think we can have redeemable gold back in the system again. That's what I'm fighting for.
Hello, my name's Todd. I've got a kind of a two-part question
Okay.
slash statement. And I want your thoughts on it, obviously. What do you say?
Joe, speak into the mic more if they can't hear you.
Talking to the mic more?
Yes, thank you.
I can't hear very well either. So in the Constitution, it says specifically that $1 equals 1 troy ounce of silver, and all debts to the government must be paid in gold and silver. So that would be one solution whenever anybody says, you know, giving them a note of indebtedness, you can't really pay that. So, you know, you kind of quander and say, well, what do I pay you with that's actually money? So I wanted your thought on that. And the second thing is about the national debt. I guess it's at like $40 trillion. So, or not dollars, Federal Reserve notes. Since the interest was never printed, the debt can't really be ever paid back, not one
That was
dime.
never the intention.
Yes, exactly. So is it possible if people became aware and understood how the monetary system worked for the people to actually just reject the national debt?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But understand, debt isn't as much about debt as it is about money expansion, because that is how money is created. Now,
Through debt, right.
Correct. Now, for a long time, I was trying to figure out, well, what are they going to use as justification for the new digital money? And everything that I had read was either more debt, which means they have to get rid of the debt that we've got right now. That's hyperinflating it away. That's how they do it. Or purchases. But with the legalization of the stable coins, that's how they're doing it. Between purchases are going to justify creating this new money. And the easier and cheaper it is to create that kind of garbage, the more of it gets created and what's its value. So what I showed you today was the way they got around the Constitution. That was unconstitutional. I asked, why? How come everybody
they're
allowed
private.
that?
The Federal Reserve is private. So they're not-
Absolutely. It's a private corporation. You and I, we're working for private corporate debt. And it's in our pockets and we don't think anything about it. But look at it. Federal Reserve note. Federal Reserve, as you know, is private, and a note is a debt instrument. It's not money.
So if people became aware and we told our Congress, even though they don't listen to us right now, that nationalize the Federal Reserve, revoke, or I forget the exact legal term for it, discharge, that's it. Discharge the debt and wipes it out. Just like if you go, and I did the experiment myself after I read your book in the early 2000s, I argued with credit card companies, and for the most part I won, and they just discharged the debt back in like 2000. I bought a bunch of gold and silver. But yeah, my ex-wife has it all in a safety deposit box, so I don't know how that's going to work for me.
Well,
but
you can talk to us at our booth.
she said it's worth $400,000 now, and I knew that. But
oh, it's worth way more than that. See, it's really interesting. And somebody, you know, if you get the dime card, it has the price that we happen to pay on the day that we happen to buy that dime, right? And somebody, they get all excited. Wow, you've given me $6. No, I've given you not quite 1/10 of an ounce of silver, but we've been trained to put value in dollars. Dollars have no value.
no,
If you look on the bottom of the Federal Reserve purchasing power chart, there's a big fat goose egg there.
so I got one more
Okay.
question. Oh, you guys, are you sure? Okay.
We're
So
good. We've got
last
time.
question. I've been noticing on the Federal Reserve notes that, like with the new $100 bill, and I think the 50 and even the 20, you'll see it's being issued not by a bank, by the original 12 Federal Reserve banks, but by, it'll say like Federal, if I remember right, I'm going off my, I could look, but Federal Reserve System. And whereas the old bills came from Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas, Dallas, New York, San Francisco, I think maybe Denver and a few others. But you notice it's a different bank now system?
Arose by any other name. They call things all different, like confiscation. Boy, oh boy, they would never confiscate gold again in this country. Well, manipulating the price openly. I mean, when did the spot gold and silver market start? 1970s, in the 70s. And they said, you know, if you take your time and read the discussions, which are released many, many years after the fact, so who goes back and reads them? But if you read the conversations that they have when they're setting things up, it's very interesting. They actually said that their goal was to create a very large paper market so that the demand for the physical would be minimum. And we were taught that gold, to treat gold as a trade, not as money. And yet, what are the central banks accumulating? Are they accumulating gold to trade? No, they are not. They are accumulating gold to preserve their freedom. And central banks aren't really free anyway, but they're accumulating gold because that's how you, and silver as well. They're not accumulating silver, but I'm saying we all need some silver as well to preserve your freedom.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful information that you've shared.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Is gold and silver in a self-directed IRA safe?
Everybody must do whatever they're comfortable doing. That is not a choice that I have made, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it, regardless of what your perception is. In the court of law, they don't care about your perception. So that is not a choice. And I will tell you, because I've studied currencies and currency life cycles, and there are repeatable patterns. It's not rocket science. You just have to look at enough of them and you go, oh, that's something that happens every time. All right, I can't guarantee tomorrow, but to be quite frank with you, if something's happened 100% of the time, over 4,800 times, and we're going through the same thing, then more than likely, you know what the next most likely outcome is going to be.
Thank you.
And so we've developed a strategy that's based on that.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lori, and my question for you is, we have a close-knit community. We have
Excellent.
We have a bunker. We have a bug-out plan. We're fairly prepared, and during a collapse, I still have a hard time picturing what it looks like.
Oh.
What does a financial collapse
Look at Venezuela.
look like?
Look at Venezuela. Look at Zimbabwe. Generally, globally, on average, about 80% of the population ends up in abject poverty. 80%. Now, in both Zimbabwe and Venezuela, those numbers are 90%. But notice I did not say 100%, did I? Because there's always people that have wealth, and wealth doesn't disappear. It just shifts location. Now, Wall Street wants you to think they can manufacture wealth. Well, sure they can, because the Wall Street also creates new money into the system. But what it looks like, this is why I'm so encouraging of local communities, because we have to come together to weather this storm. And it does, it takes a village. So it is very, it's not good. People are abject poverty. They can't feed themselves. They can't feed their children.
Will this happen overnight? Will we wake up and the dollar's collapsed?
Part of it will happen overnight, but it's been happening. Go in and look at the purchasing power chart. Put your birthday in there, and you're going to see how much they are admitting to stealing from you since the day you were born. So the difference between inflation and hyperinflation is just the speed. So for example, if I walked into your closet and I took one button over 30 years, at the end of 30 years, I'd have a lot of buttons. But if you wouldn't probably notice it, it would just be like an inconvenience. Oh, wow, I need to fix that button again. If I walk into your closet and take out 98% of every button in your closet, you're going to notice it tomorrow. So the collapse has been happening since 1913.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lynette, I like how you, excuse me, I like how you referred to Bitcoin as being a Trojan horse.
Oh, well, it's true.
And I guess I just was wondering about a general answer, what you think about technocracy. Basically, when you're looking at the World Economic Forum and they say you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, but
I don't think you'll be happy. I
no,
disagree.
it's the corral's getting tighter. But anyway, I
It
just
is.
wondered if you had any comments to make about the technocratic plan to change the price-based monetary system into all the natural resources of the planet, which they'll own and will own nothing. I mean,
Exactly. And then you're going to have to rent everything. And look at what's already
but that's
happening.
why I buy precious metals too.
Exactly. All of those subscriptions, but you also need to create surety. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is primarily silver, but not exclusively. Wealth preservation, which for me is primarily gold, but not exclusively. Community is arguably the most important thing I ever talk about anymore.
Absolutely.
And shelter. This is what we need. So people are procrastinating. We think we have all this time. I can't tell you that it's going to be noticeable Tuesday morning at 8:35, but I was there on Black Monday. The day started out normal. I went out for lunch. It was a completely different thing when I got back from lunch.
Hi, thank you very much. I have two quick questions. You said something about right now, an ounce of gold is worth $40,000.
Yeah, that's the
How do you
fundamental
arrive
value.
at that? Where did that
That's
come
a great
from?
number. I'm going to do a video on, I have done videos on it, but I think I know how to do it better now. So bear with me. But it's really quite simple. Okay? Gold is sound money. This garbage is fiat money. They're both money, right? Just the flip side of the coin. So how is this created? Through debt. So you just take all the debt that's been created. You can do it country to country. You can do it however you want. I kind of do it globally. And I believe the last time I checked from the IFF, the global debt that they were admitting to stood at something like, I don't know, 319 trillion or something like that.
I see.
And then you just divide it. There's a finite amount of gold. See, so you take all the debt, you divide it by all the gold, and then that actually tells you how much this is truly worth.
That's
You
great.
see?
Yes, I do.
And when they're trying to get back your confidence,
Yeah.
because it's a con game,
They'll
that's when you're
change
going to
the number.
start. Exactly.
Change the number.
It's not going to happen immediately. And what nobody's going to know until they do it is what that cover ratio is.
That's great.
So that 40,000 is on a one-to-one basis. But guess what? Are they done growing debt?
No, they're going to change it. Okay,
Exactly.
one more quick question. What about diamonds?
Well, actually, De Beers just recently slashed their prices because
Whoa.
they have figured out how to create diamonds in a lab, right? And the other thing about diamonds or gems or things like that, they have more value the larger they are. The beauty of gold is you can melt this down. It can be so thin and you still have gold. It doesn't lose its value. Gems will lose their value if you cut them smaller. And this is monetary.
Real quick, I don't want to take much of your time, but the gold that's at Fort Knox, supposedly, and on the balance sheet of the United States, what the value is it valued at current value or is it valued at an older, like I was under the impression it's valued at $41 an ounce or something.
$42.22. But understand too, every single central bank has a gold revaluation account.
One last question coming up, final one.
Lynette, in your system, where you're going to stay, you mentioned energy.
Yes.
Tesla had that type of energy. They put us on a rent system for energy. What is your answer? How are you going to make this energy?
Well, the way that I'm making it right now, because I have the property up there and it is off grid, at the moment we have solar. And I'm able to generate plenty of energy for my house. There is about 4,500 square feet. And I have a guest cottage, and then I have a grow dome, so for food. However, there was wind on there, didn't work very well. We're going to do that. And then as we start to put in some ponds, we're going to do some hydroelectric. And we're going to show people how we're doing it. The good, the bad, we screw it up, whatever. You know, the interesting thing is that people will look and they'll say, oh, look at that. She knows how to do all of this. Yeah, well, would you like to see my gazillion-dollar tomato? So we do it and we share. And
that's it, Lynette Zang. How about that? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was just thinking about a lot of the things you've said. I've been studying it up too. The necessity of bringing the community together and utilizing other forms of exchange, not when the collapse occurs, but now, as I said, because you don't have practice and suddenly now you don't know what to do. What happens when the Amish, when the electricity goes off? Nothing. It's business. Well, if you are not already spending gold, silver, gold backs in your community, you're doing it wrong. Don't hold it and hoard it. There are ways to fractionally take them down to smaller quantities, whether it's silver or these gold backs or other things. We can practice and teach now. I go to the Ace Hardware in my community and I could spend gold backs. It's already happening. But if it's not happening where you are, that's trouble. Either get out or start doing it now. Don't wait. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff we get to do here at the Red Pill Expo. How about that, huh? Taking it and making it real. The red pill is not just some kind of fantasy. It's something that we are living. And I thank you all for coming. Day one is done. You guys have a good time? You ready for day two? All right, let's say a big thank you and applause for all of our speakers today as we wrap it up, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.